Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife. And as I have previously mentioned, June is PTSD Awareness Month, and I am really excited to share an interview I was able to do with Amanda Wise, a fellow military spouse who is on the forefront of getting resources out there for military spouses so that we can assist our service members as they confront the issue of PTSD. And this has just been a really great opportunity to work with Amanda. Also, I want to say a shout out to all of the fathers out there. I hope you had a fabulous Father's Day. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Before I jump into my interview with Amanda, I want to make a critical point, and that is individuals who are dealing with PTSD are intelligent, capable human beings who are able to do a lot of really fabulous stuff in their lives and in their careers and for society. PTSD just happens to be a situation and a symptom of something they are dealing with. It does not define who they are. Okay, Amanda, take it away and explain what you're up to.
So, what I have discovered over the course of the 19 years that I have been now a veteran spouse who has seen combat is that there are not any resources out there for the loved ones of those who are struggling with PTSD from combat, from the military in general. There really are no resources out there. There are a lot of resources for people who have PTSD, but none for those that support them, whether it be the wife, the husband, the children, the parents. There's just nothing out there. And so I got frustrated with this, and I decided to come up with a presentation, or I guess you could say my experience put into PowerPoint presentation form. And I decided to put it out there to the world. Of anybody that wants to talk about it or wants me to come talk to other people about it, I am more than willing and ready and available to do so, because the best way we can support those that we care about is to gain knowledge ourselves of whatever it is that ails them or that is a difficulty for them. And over the course of the past, we've been married 19 years. Over the course of the 19 years, it has been quite a struggle to kind of compile all of this in what I like to call probably the world's longest PTSD experiment, if you will, in history. So I like to try and also point out that I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a mental health professional. I actually have degrees in criminal justice, minors in sociology. I've been studying human behavior for a long time, but what my experience has taught me to kind of help people manage it when you love someone who has these problems. So I think the first thing that you got to understand is what PTSD is. What is post-traumatic stress disorder? And it's essentially your brain's response to a trauma after the trauma has happened. Now, for some people, they can stay mobilized. They can experience the situation. They can experience the trauma. They can experience the intensity, and then their body processes through it. Usually pretty quickly, right? Could be anything from within minutes and hours to maybe a week or so. Their body's able to process it, right? And they're able to deal with it, and all things are right with the world. PTSD, however, you have immobilization, where you don't know how to process it. You just can't. And it manifests in so many different ways. It's like it attacks your immune system, and it creates this thing. It's like it's normal for your mind and your body to be in shock after a traumatic incident, but PTSD is where it like gets your nervous system stuck. So you kind of got to understand that your loved one is stuck in the mud. They are literally stuck in the mud. And there are so many ways that we can help them, but you have to understand that you are actually never going to understand. You, as the loved one for them, is never going to get what's going on in their brain. You were not in their situation. Even if you've been through a similar trauma, you are not going to understand what they're going through fully, because our bodies and our brains all process so differently. And it is so important to understand that supporting that loved one is not about understanding why they're reacting the way they are or why they're acting the way they are in situations. Stop the why, forget the why. The why, not important in this situation, at least not for you to be able to help them. And I struggled with that personally a lot in the beginning. We were married when he went through his second deployment. He had already been through one when I met him. So it just kind of compounded upon itself along with my husband's, childhood trauma. And so I've only known him in this fight or flight response state to PTSD, right? And so as you're dealing with it and you understand that you can't do anything to stop it from happening necessarily, and you can't understand it, the best you can do is be a support system. Well, how do I do that? Once you remember that you're not going to be able to know exactly what's going on with them and you can't understand it, you need to understand that the words that come out of their mouth and the actions that they may do, you cannot take to heart. Sometimes those things are going to be ugly. They're going to be mean. They're going to be hateful. They're going to be spiteful sometimes and vindictive. You have to understand that you are not in a traditional relationship with this person anymore. The person you know is no longer there. There is no getting them back because you are changed forever once you go through and are experiencing PTSD. You are now a different person. The parts of you that we love are always going to be there. And it's our job as a loved one to find them and help you revisit them. But the words that you say aren't coming from you. So as a loved one, you have to understand that they don't mean it. Don't take it to heart. Let them process through it. Let them take their time. You cannot expect someone who's experiencing a plethora of emotions for reasons they don't understand to be rational. That's like trying to rationalize with a toddler. My husband's least favorite phrase is to compare him to a toddler. But that's kind of the way you're dealing with it, is you have these big emotions, you don't know where they're coming from, and so you're gonna projectile them at your safe space. And as the loved one, that's generally you. And that is so hard to deal with. So a big key that I push is patience. Patience is the key. You're not going to get it right all the time. We fought and squabbled and yelled and cried so much, and we sometimes still do. But as long as the loved one is as patient as they can be, you're able to help them traverse these emotions. And you have to help them figure out these emotions. And some of those can be difficult to figure out. For example, helping them figure out their triggers. It's not always obvious. It's not always big loud noises, fireworks, gunshots, muffler bounce backs. It's not always crowds and intense situations or anything like that. Sometimes it's simple things. I've got two examples. One, when our kids were growing up, my husband did not mind kid mess whatsoever. If you look behind me, you see I could be quite disorganized sometimes, right? Does not bother him whatsoever. That's my space. He stays out of it. When the kids were little, they're little. There's going to be mess. As they have gotten bigger, when they leave their mess, as people who are old enough to know better, he gets very triggered by this, by the clutter and the mess around him. Because if you have mess in an intense combat situation, things can go horribly wrong. So he's still, after 18 years, 16 of being in the military, he's been out 16 years. He still thinks, okay, this is a messy situation. These are the things that can't happen or won't happen or is not going to be okay. And so his brain goes into overdrive because of a mess. Another situation is, okay, crowds, understandable. Hearing Arabic language spoken, also understandable. But you would think he's in a safe space, he would be okay. I was pregnant with our 14-year-old at the time, and her son was 3, and I was at a doctor's appointment for a high-risk doctor's appointment. And my husband and I walk in with our son, who's 3, and there's a couple of Middle Eastern families there. It's at, I believe, Vanderbilt in Nashville. And that totally fine. We sat in the back of the room, of course, so that he could see all the entrances and exits and he could be as far away from people as he possibly could. And then all of a sudden, more Middle Eastern families come into the picture. More of their language is being spoken. They are not threatening in any way, and they're there for the same reason that I am. He is with me, and he is in a safe place. It was too overwhelming. He could not handle it. He did not react poorly. He just picked up our son, went to the subway in the hospital, and then they sat in the car while I had my visit. We were able to determine that he was not ready for that situation. Even simple things that trigger him when he's unmedicated. Now, we're fortunate that we have found a medication system that works really good for his anxiety and his PTSD and his sleep, thankfully, for now. But before then, there were things like he was in 16 IEDs. So it kind of makes sense that road trash triggers him. But I'm not talking big pieces of trash. A grocery bag that is blowing effortlessly across the highway would trigger him. So we had to learn not only what the trigger is, but how to deal with it. So there were moments where I had to pull over and be patient. Doesn't matter if I'm going to be late for the thing. Doesn't matter if we're in a hurry to get home because I got a screaming kid or because I need to use the bath. It doesn't matter. Again, it's not about you. That's the most important key to being able to help a loved one. It's not about you. When you start to force things out of your loved one is when you realize that that's not going to work. You cannot force them to just go home when they're triggered while we're driving down the road. We'll just hurry up and get home. No, take the moment, pull over on the side of the road, help them calm down. If they're in a crowded space, don't get mad at them for leaving a situation. Oh, well, it's a family get together. There's nothing here that's triggering. No, it's not about you or the opinions of other people. If you truly want to help your loved one with PTSD, you have to make it about them and be there for them. Does that mean that my husband's not there for me? Absolutely not. He is there for me in every capacity. But when I take my selfish desires and put them to the side and I selflessly help him, he is able to conquer PTSD every day and then be more present for our family. When they have those triggers and have those moments, you're usually going to encounter moments where they want to talk about it. You cannot force them to talk, just like you can't force them in their triggered situations to do things. You can't force them to talk about those triggers, but it tends to happen when they experience them. So he has not sat there and told me every single horrific thing he experienced as a combat infantryman on the ground during the initial invasion into Iraq. I know a lot of the really bad things because when he was ready to talk to me, I was ready to listen. Being ready and receptive is a very big challenge because it's difficult to know when are they ready? When is the time for me to be like, okay, I'm shutting off my phone. You have my undivided attention. Because I will tell you that the majority of those times happen when you least expect them. Since I'm my husband's safe place, they usually happen when it was just the two of us. He rarely, if ever, talked about the most difficult parts around our children. Now, he shared stories with them, but not the parts that added difficulty to him. So when you're the loved one of someone going through this, being ready to listen is so important, which means you need to close your mouth and open your ears. Your opinion on what they've been through, your thoughts about the situation or the politics happening at home at the same time, your overwhelming desire, if you're like me and have ADHD, to interrupt and share a caring story in the middle, you can't do that. You just can't, because you're taking their very vulnerable moment and you're kind of pooping on it, right? You're kind of saying it's not valid to you right now. And as the loved one of someone with PTSD like this, you have to accept that you're their person. The VA medical system, as much as they want to help, they are extremely flawed. It's a government agency. That's kind of a no-brainer. So they're going to find a person. In my case, that's me. And when it's you, you have to be ready to be receptive. You have to be ready. And if you don't know how to listen, learn. You have to be ready to learn how to listen. With the VA medical system, what we've learned over the years is a lot of the doctors are polite, wonderful, nice people. They want to help. The PAs and the medical staff there, they want to help the veteran. But things people don't understand about the VA, which is why you have to document everything. The difficulty with the VA boils down to, it's not that they have a lack of desire to help you. It's that a lot of the staff there is being pulled from other clinics. They're students who need the experience. They are, even if they're full-time at the VA, they're going to be pushed to another clinic because that clinic has more of a need at this time. So veterans are having to be recycled through these stories and these experiences and these emotions over and over again with new healthcare professionals, so that that professional can hear their story and help them the best way that they know how. And they're having to relive it so many times that you would think that for some, retelling this would be easy. It's not. It's not. Not everyone can do it. Not everyone can relive it. Some people don't want to talk about it at all. My husband will talk about stuff, especially with me. So I'm always ready and willing and able to listen when I can, because if he's got an appointment coming up, a telephone call with his VA professional so that he can maintain his medications. And thankfully, it's been the same guy since COVID, and it is a miracle, but he's not at our local VA. He's been tossed around. He only does video calls. He got lucky, like nobody's business lucky. We just keep waiting for him to be reassigned. So as the loved one of someone, every time they go to the VA and have to relive their mental health issues, you're going to have to deal with that. That's going to be a trigger. As the loved one of someone going through this, every time they have a trigger, they could feel the residual effects of it for weeks after and not know why. They don't understand why. They're still shaky from a backfiring car they heard a week ago. You've got to be willing to be not only patient, but to listen. I can't stress that enough. You are their person now, and you need to respect that. And it sounds like I'm making this sound like it's like just so much difficulty and it's so hard and you're not allowed to have any thought of yourself. That's not what the intention is for what I'm saying. I feel very fulfilled in my marriage with my husband. I feel very fulfilled emotionally that he listens to me. He's there for me. He supports me. Being able to take those moments with him and slow it down and talk about it and work him through it helps him be a better husband, helps him be a better partner and coworker and husband, father, and all of those things. So you're going to have to sacrifice yourself every now and then, and it's worth it to get your person there. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah. And you do it because you love them. You do it because they mean it that much to you. I really love the points you're making, because the power of calm, staying calm, is so important, because it can be explosive, it can be sudden, it can be unexpected. And staying calm is huge. Everything you're saying is on point. And that's something, as a spouse, you're probably there more readily. You see this, you recognize, you know it. But extended family may not be as aware. And that's something you, as a spouse, can point out to them. Hey, this is just not a good time. He needs some space.
We actually just went through that. My Southern family of 11 people, ages 3 to 65, just came and spent a week with us because of my son getting through high school. Well, he didn't really graduate, he was homeschooled, but we had a shindig and all that, and they came out for vacation. And he does not do even family. He doesn't do large groups of people. He's not around children very much. There's a lot of triggers involved in that whole situation, even though he enjoys some of our company and we make great memories. And so we had to, tell all of the family, even when he's home, you're not going to see him much. He's going to do his best to interact with you. He's going to do his best to try and be involved in some of the activities that we do, but don't take it personal. And over the years, they've learned it's not them. It's 100% not them, but that he's going to be up in his safe space. He's going to be doing what he's going to be doing, on his own. He's still going to work because he has to have a schedule. He feels more fulfilled that way. He has to do X, Y, Z, but don't feel as if he doesn't care about you, because this is just a lot for them to understand. It's a big situation for him to process. And to make everyone happier about this, we need to allow ourselves a little bit of grace and mercy towards him and not force anything. You cannot force it. And that, I think, is a big stopping block for a lot of people, because I know for me, for a long time, I did want to force it. I was like, why don't you just push through it? Right? It's like, if you don't know how to swim, you take swimming lessons. You just do the thing. But it's not that way with PTSD. It absolutely is not. And no matter how you get it, I'm focusing on military families, combat families, but those who get it from other traumas throughout their life, it's a similar thing. You cannot force an issue with them. They're on their own healing journey. They all are. And we are just a part of it who can help make their life more peaceful. And there are steps that we take in our household, things that we do that we've learned. There's 6 things that I think are the most important that we do to be, I guess you would call it preventative care for them. Things like hobbies. Let them explore their hobbies. My husband has like 792,000 hobbies. And he'll start one and then he gets bored with it, or he completes a small task and he moves on to the next one. I'm talking everything from painting to painting miniatures for Warhammer 40K tabletop games, to puzzles, to taking apart engines, to leatherworking, carpentry. We have a forge in our garage. Okay. That's what he needs to do. Plays video games. Sometimes his hobby literally is just sitting on the couch and doing absolutely nothing while scrolling his phone and being in my presence. You have to be okay with them trying to figure out different hobbies that stimulate happy chemicals in their brain. Happy chemicals are hard to find. So you got to let them stimulate those happy chemicals in their brain. And some people would consider my next one a hobby, but it's not if you're not into it. And I'm a big fan. I am not a journaler. I don't write things down unless it's a list of what I need to do. But if you have a loved one with PTSD that journals, not only is it a fantastic way for them to get their thoughts and emotions out of their head, but it also creates another point, which is a safe space, like a spot just for them, their own space. They can go and disappear from the world. Sometimes, like now, I've got a 5,200 square foot house. He has his own office. He gets the garage however he wants it. He has places to go. We used to live in 900 square feet. So personal space, not necessarily easy to do, but he would journal and he would be able to write his thoughts down. I never read his journal. That is not for me. That is for him to get his thoughts out. Sometimes they're not going to be kind thoughts. You don't want to read that as a loved one. I know at some point I've spoken to other veterans who've done journaling, and what they do is they burn the journal when they're done so that they can get it all out and move on. That's an option for someone. If that's something you like to do, I highly recommend it, because sometimes it's hard to get your brain to say the words, especially at the right moment or in the right tone, or convey it properly. But sometimes when we write it down, it's a whole other experience. And that goes along with my private space thing. Sometimes your journal might be your private space, but if you can find anywhere, even if it's letting them go for a drive, letting them take a long shower every time they get full of their emotions. If you can't designate an office, then Designate a couch time. Even when you have small children, explain to your children that this is daddy's time. This is so and so's time, and allow them to welcome in others as needed. For example, when my kids were little and we lived in a tiny house and we couldn't have extra space, my husband loved to play video games to just escape the world. I learned to play video games so we could do it together. Sometimes you don't want to play with your wife. You don't want to play video games with anyone. He played games where our kids could say, Daddy, why don't you do this thing? Like Assassin's Creed. They would tell them what to do and where to go, and they were now involved in it, and they felt like they weren't being pushed away, but he still felt like he had his space and his time. And I never took offense. And that's something else you got to keep in mind too. Just like, hey, don't take everything to heart. Don't take offense when they want to spend a lot of time in that private space for a while. Again, you'll never understand what they're going through. Don't try to understand what they're going through. Don't take it personal. Let them have that private time and private space. Hop on the bandwagon. I learned video games. I learned guns, things that make him happy. But that doesn't mean I'm going to do those things all the time with him. It just allows him to share something that he finds very personal with me when he wants to. And then the other real quick things that are hugely great for keeping the loved one from experiencing those emotional days, like let them have hobbies and journaling in a private space, is physical outlets usually help. So working out, running, jogging, kayaking, any of those things, because those release happy chemicals and their brain is struggling for those, and you feel a sense of accomplishment. But also so do validation activities is what I call them. That's not the clinical term. I have no idea what the clinical term is, but I call them validation activities. So my husband loves me. He also loves hockey. He does not love public spaces full of people, but I can comfortably get him to go to a hockey game. It inches him in a safe place to kind of handle and deal with those situations and how to react, and he gets more comfortable. It's almost like a desensitization. I know there's a therapy out there, like MDR or something like that, where they put you in intense situations to force you to relive or force you to deal. My husband doesn't do well with intense therapies like that, but he does great with small steps. So going to dinner on a Friday night at dinner time instead of on a Thursday at 4:00, like we're on the senior citizens menu, is also a way that validates their emotions and their feelings, but help them make baby steps. And then my last one is always music. Music, music, music. Whatever kind of music your person likes, whether they want to listen to hard rock, grunge, symphonies, country music, you don't have to like it. They have to find a music that they can easily get to and easily makes them feel a different emotion than what they're feeling in the most intense moments. That's what's most important. So those are our preemptive steps, if you will, that we do in our house to try and make it so that when he's having those moments, I don't have to be the catcher of all the anger and the disappointment or the sadness or any of that, because your loved one doesn't want to break that out on you, but they're experiencing it all the time. With these steps, with these other activities and these other tips that I gave you, you can help them find a different outlet besides you so that it helps you feel less stressed about it and helps them manage it on their own, in their own way, in their own time.
That I love those. Those are really wonderful steps. Okay, we're running short on time. So if people want to reach out, find out where you're speaking, what you're working on, connect with you, what's a good way? How do you do that? What are you working on right now?
Well, I am doing a presentation June the 20th in Lehi, Utah. You can find me on email is wise.family@live.com. If you want to reach out, want me to come and talk, want to, kind of text a little bit. I don't generally phone conversation or FaceTime with strangers. So I will text with you or email back and forth with you if you want me to come and talk with you or anything like that. or talk for you, present to a group of people. I will talk to anyone from just one-on-one, explaining, kind of my experience, all the way up to hundreds of people. I could sell at a stadium if I wanted to, and I'd be completely comfortable. So that's fine with me. But yeah, so if you want to reach out to me, email is the best way to do it, and you can communicate there or link up something where I can come and present for you.
That would be fabulous. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I'm really grateful that Amanda was able to take the opportunity to break down those resources and things that she's learned that are helpful in regards to PTSD, and I hope that you're able to use them. Also, wanted to let you know that with July, I will be taking a few weeks off for family time. And as always, please be the good that you want to see in the world. I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife.